Good morning. Happy Thanksgiving to you on this Thanksgiving Day. I'm going to deviate just a little bit today from normal Bible study rather than follow the lectionary. I'm going to talk just a little bit about the normal Thanksgiving text for today. But first, just going to start out with this. Praise and thanksgiving, God, we would offer, for all things living you have made good. Harvest of sown fields, fruits of the orchard, hay from the mown fields, blossom and wood. Just a day that we take time out to give thanks to God for the blessings that we have. And on this Thanksgiving, it's a totally different type of Thanksgiving with all of the restrictions and everything in place, and sometimes seems hard to find things to be thankful for, but there are many things to be thankful for. And so what I'm going to do today, I'm going to read from Luke chapter 17, beginning at verse 11. It's the story of the 10 lepers. It's a short read. Now it happened that Jesus was on the way to Jerusalem when he passed along the border between Samaria and Galilee. As he entered a certain village, there were 10 men who were lepers, who stood afar off. And they lifted their voices up and shouted to him, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." When Jesus saw them, he said to them, "Go and show yourselves to the priests." And so it was that as they went, they were cleansed. And one of them, when he saw that he was healed, returned with a loud voice, glorifying God, and fell on his face at Jesus' feet, and giving him thanks. And this man was a Samaritan. So Jesus said to him, "Were not 10 cleansed? But where are the other 9? Were there not any found who returned to give glory to God except this foreigner?" And he said to the man, "Arise and go on your way. Your faith has made you well." I've preached on this text, Thanksgiving services, many different times, and other times as well. And it always is a reminder to me that this one man who was cleansed that came back, I mean, they were all cleansed, but he noticed. As they were going on the way, he noticed that he was cleansed from leprosy and came back. And what a wonderful gift that would have been for them to be cleansed from leprosy. We just got done with a long term of quarantine. We were quarantining for 14 days because of exposure, and then we were quarantined for another 10 days after our symptoms. And we weren't to be able to go out into the community. We weren't able to go to the grocery store. We weren't able to go, any place. I went out to my wood shop, but I was the only one there. And that's the way it was for these lepers. They were outcasts. I didn't feel like an outcast. I did kind of feel like an outcast when I had COVID and when I was quarantining, because you got to stay away from other people. But these lepers, they knew what it was like, because they couldn't be with their families. They couldn't be among other people because leprosy was super contagious. If you touched someone with leprosy, you would have leprosy. And there's another story in the Gospels of the leper coming to Jesus, and Jesus reaches his hand out and he touches this leper. And that would have been totally taboo. You couldn't do that. And it's just like with someone that's got COVID right now, you don't want to get close to them. It's just the way it is. But these men were living, these people were living together outside of the city because they were the only ones they could be with. Other lepers, other people that were dirty. They were unclean. They couldn't be with their family. And so these people had heard about Jesus. They knew who he was, and as he was passing by, they shouted from a distance. They didn't come running up to him, but they shouted from a distance, and they said, "Jesus, Master, have mercy. Have mercy." And Jesus didn't touch them. He didn't say any fancy words. He said to them, "Go and show yourselves to the priest." And as rare as it was for someone to be cured of leprosy somehow, this was what they had to do. When they were cured, when they no longer had this affection or infection on their skin, this rotting and folding. I mean, the skin would just rot and fall off and be white and just, terrible. But if somehow they were miraculously healed, they would have to go and show themselves to the priest, and the priest would examine this person and find no leprosy, and then they were able to go to again be with their family. And it was a rare, rare occurrence. So for Jesus to heal these 10 lepers was indeed miraculous. And the other 9 that didn't return to Jesus, Jesus told them, go show yourselves to the priest. They probably did just what Jesus said they did. And they probably rejoiced and gave thanks just as much when they were pronounced cleansed and able to go and spend time with their family. Think about what a joyous day that would be. How grateful they would have been, how thankful. And so I think that it's fitting that on the Thanksgiving Day that we would read this text. And the Samaritan, the foreigner, is the one that came back. But he noticed. And I can't help but to think that they all gave thanks and praise to God, because they knew who Jesus was. They knew who had cleansed them and all of that. But the thing that I really want to look at is that this one person noticed. He noticed on the way. And, with everything going on today, sometimes it's hard to find something to think about that might be good. Hard to find something that might be able to give thanks for. Even though it's just going to be Cheryl and myself and my mother-in-law for dinner here today for Thanksgiving, doesn't mean that I don't have the rest of my family in my heart, in my mind, that I give thanks for them. So it's a different kind of Thanksgiving Day. But I notice a few things to be thankful for that my wife and I and my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law and her husband have pretty much recovered. We've got a ways to go. They're still tired and still not much energy and still a feeling of being drug out, but we're able to go on with life. And I think that's one of the things that for a lot of people with COVID, who have had it or looking at it or have it right now, is to realize that it's not the end of the world. Some people die from COVID just as some people die from a lot of different things. But to find things in our lives to be thankful for, to notice the little things. And I see a lot of pictures of sunrises and sunsets and other things of beauty in nature. And sometimes, we take those things for granted too. I looked out the window of my shop some mornings earlier in the morning, and the sun is coming up and there's some clouds over there. And, in the really cold days of the winter, the skies can be clear and you'll see the sundogs on either sides of the sun. But even on these days that are, in the 20s and 30s and 40s, sometimes when there are clouds in the sky and the sun is coming up, off on the side you'll see a little bit of a rainbow shape in the clouds. Just a reminder of the beauty of nature, of all things that are good. And so I sang Praise and Thanksgiving, just the one verse of it today, but it reminds us of what God has really given us. And of all of the things that we take for granted sometimes in our lives. I look out the window right now and the sun is shining. Makes it look like a beautiful day. There's not much wind outside there today. Temperature maybe not the greatest. It's about 32 degrees or so. But the sun shines and it brightens the world. And Jesus is the Son of God. He says, I am the light of the world. He said that in John 15. He has that recorded. So Jesus brings light into the darkest corners of our lives, into the darkest and dimmest times. And my father-in-law isn't going to be with us for Thanksgiving this year. But even though he's not, I know in my heart and in my mind that he's still safe with Jesus. He always has been. And so it's kind of a bittersweet Thanksgiving in some ways that way that, I mean, Frank isn't with us and families can't gather as much as we would like to. But yet, notice the small things in life. I had a memory come up on Facebook this morning. Some of you probably saw I shared it. Erica's swinging in our basement. We got removable tiles in the ceiling, so she loves to swing. So I put that little swing up in the basement, and here she is, 2 years old, and Cheryl taught her how to pump, so she's swinging in the basement, and swing's been up more than just one time down there. But to think about some fun little thing like that, a memory that comes up from the past, a blessing from God, and all you got to do is look outside to be reminded that God is here, that God has blessed us with so much. And sometimes we complain. I shouldn't say sometimes. And we'll say, well, it doesn't do any good to complain, but, and then we complain a little bit anyway. But the reality is we have so much to be thankful for. So notice the little things. Notice the big things. And always take time to give thanks. I give thanks for you for tuning in, not only today, but other days as well, for being a part of my community. God's blessings this day, and may you have a happy Thanksgiving.